Hi there, Keith. Happy Friday. Thanks for coming on the show. What are your thoughts on the ICC warrants? We know the opposition has been pretty critical of the Labor position on it, which is to dodge questions.
This is a really serious moment for an institution that was a century in the making, from the ad hoc tribunals after World War II and the Nuremberg trials through to the ad hoc tribunals after the former Yugoslavia disintegrated. There has been a call for a court with universal jurisdiction. But that universal jurisdiction could only occur through a grand bargain. And the grand bargain was jurisdiction on the one hand, that you sign up to it, and complementarity. And complementarity is an important feature that has been undermined in this decision here. And it's a simple one. It's that you give sovereign states the time and the space in order to conduct their own investigations. This conflict hasn't been going long compared to others. And let's give a contrast. It took us almost a decade to look into our own allegations of war crimes in Afghanistan, and they've only just started to go to trial. So for the ICC to rush in here and not give the Israeli system a chance to look into itself is really disturbing and really puts a crack in that grand bargain that states like Australia signed up to in good faith.
So what do you think Australia should do with regards to the ICC? Back out like Dutton suggested?
Yeah. Well, I think in the first instance, we should be very forceful in our criticisms. There's no sub judice rule here. This isn't before a court in the Supreme Court of Victoria, the federal court. This is an international institution that has to live alongside the sovereignty of states, particularly democratic states. And you can't pick up a textbook on international relations that doesn't have a chapter criticising the politics or the bias of the ICC. That's normal. That's what we have. And there's an inconsistency in when the Albanese government chooses to criticise international institutions. And they're well within their rights to stand up for Australian sovereignty, because we can't really trust the ICC going forward now that the principle of complementarity has been compromised like this.
But given the communities that feel differently on this conflict, if you were in power, what would you say? Wouldn't you tread carefully about these warrants as well?
Well, we want the ICC to succeed as an institution, because taking the worst excesses out of conflict is in everyone's interests. Any human being on earth has seen the bloody history of war and the devastating toll that it inflicts upon civilians. So if there's an institution that can help pull leaders back from that, that is a good thing. But when it is criticised as being a political body, or it lacks legitimacy in straying from the agreement that helped set it up, that should concern all of us. Because right now the legitimacy of the ICC is in question, and that's solely because of the decision that has been made. So in defending the ICC, it is important to stand up and criticise it. That is important. This can't just sail through, because that's not just a normal decision by this body. It's a highly political decision.
Moving on to Australia's energy transition, we've been talking a lot about keeping the Eraring coal-fired plant open for an extra few years. What do you think is, really key in making sure this transition goes smoothly?
I think what this shows is that the transition to a net zero economy by 2050 is really hard and it's costly. And that section of our power supply that brings reliable baseload power, and this particular plant gives 25% of the power of New South Wales, that is required in the system. And this fantasy that we can have 100% renewables only, I think we need to be upfront with the Australian people about whether that can actually happen and the costs of it. So there has to be a component of the system that complements renewables that is reliable. And it can either be coal, it can be gas, or we submit there should be nuclear on the table. At least let's have that discussion. But again, we're just seeing from the Labor Party a scare campaign for domestic political purposes. This is a serious, difficult task, and everything needs to be on the table.
Speaking of domestic politics, what about the former PM John Howard criticising the factionalism that's within Liberals right now?
I love former Prime Minister John Howard, and I admire him greatly, and there's books behind me written by him. I didn't hear that particular speech. Look, factionalism is a feature of politics in all parties. I think the most important thing is to make sure that it always comes second to the national interest. The national interest must come first. And then our parties, whatever party you're in, there must be a way for us to work together. Humans by nature will always form groups. I don't think we can ever get rid of that, but we must all make sure that it ranks way down the list in terms of what drives people in their decision making.
Thanks for being the voice of reason. And enjoy your weekend. Liberal MP Keith Wolohan.